When setting up field maps for your end users, you have the option of including offline areas. Offline areas are prepackaged areas that allow your end users to go offline and collect data when network connectivity is spotty or non-existent. You can create offline areas from two different locations. The first being from your web map item over in the settings tab for your web map item. If you scroll down, you'll see that there's this offline map areas here. The other location that you can do this from is from your Field Maps Designer. And I'm going to go ahead and go to offline for my PRA property management map. Now, we already talked about how to enable offline mode in another tutorial and what was required for that. So what we're going to do now is just skip down to map areas where we have this manage areas. You can see that currently I don't have any offline areas prepackaged for my end users. What I'm going to do is click on Manage Areas. And when that comes up, I am going to select different areas to prepackage for my end users. What this is called is a pre-planned workflow, which means that we've defined the offline areas ahead of time. We can offer the option for our end users to either use our prepackaged offline areas or use an on-demand workflow. If they have other needs where there aren't already offline areas provided, then they can download those from the Field Maps application. We also went over that in our app settings tutorial previously. What I'm going to do now is zoom into this location in Idaho, and let's say that this area around McCall is our project area. We can come over here to create offline area. And now we can either build this area using a polygon that we define, that can be any shape we need it to be, or we can come over and just do a basic rectangle. Now, the difference between those two is that if we do a basic rectangle, but our project area is uneven in its shape, then we're potentially having our end users download a lot of space that isn't included in the project area. And sometimes space is limited on the field devices. So it's up to you which route you choose, but you might want to play around with it. And one of the first things we need to do is name the offline area. I'm going to go ahead and call that McCall to Lake Fork. It needs to be something meaningful to help your end users understand what's included in that offline area. The next detail we'll look at is the level of detail. Now, typically our end users are not going to be collecting data from this far out, right? And so you can see that even zoom to this extent, this little black arrow is telling me that I'm right here. So I already know that maybe for navigation purposes, I should allow the offline area to contain this extent for all of the layers in the base map that are prepackaged. So I'm going to leave this at metropolitan area. And then I'm going to I can either use these circles to scroll, or I can use this drop down. And I'm going to go ahead and use these areas to scroll, and I'm going to go down to buildings. Now you can go down to rooms, but if you do that, you can see that this is a large area. And to get that much detail, it's not going to be able to package it. It says offline area is too large up here in the upper left-hand corner. We need to reduce the area or level of detail. It's important to understand that the level of detail that you are pre-packaging is going to impact the ability to download these prepackaged areas to the devices, because the higher the resolution we provide through this small building or room details, the more space that's going to take up. So usually building or buildings, plural, are pretty good. They're pretty decent for the visibility that our end users need. Next, we're going to come to packaging schedule. Now, the packaging schedule is going to determine how often the offline areas are repackaged and made available for update or re-download. You can set the offline area to update automatically on a regular schedule, or you can allow manual updates where you update the offline area and then you notify your field users. But best practice is if your data is updated frequently, such as daily with daily asset inspections, then an automatic update schedule helps keep field workers current. This means they will be able to manually use sync to update their field maps on a regular schedule that you as the creator don't have to repackage anything manually every time. So you could set this for every day and then set it for a time when your end users are not going to be utilizing their field maps, such as 4 o'clock in the morning or midnight, whatever you want that to be. Optimization is a simple enable disable option that improves scalability and performance. But when it's enabled, package updates are made available based on your packaging schedule, but editing is limited to add only workflows. And so full editing and sync capabilities aren't supported when you optimize packages. Typically, I leave this setting off because of those limitations. Once I have defined these different parameters, I'm then going to click on Save, and you'll see that it starts packaging. Now, packaging can take a short period of time, or it can take a long period of time. This is going to depend on two things: your network and your bandwidth, in addition to how much of the level of detail that you wanted to provide. Such as we have this set from metropolitan areas to buildings. Buildings takes up quite a bit of space. If we would have set this to streets instead of buildings, the packaging probably would take a lot less time because that's a lot less data to package. Once your packaging is complete, that packaging stamp will disappear. However, if there were errors, then it'll also tell you that packaging was unsuccessful and you'd have to try again or maybe recreate an area with different parameters to see if that might work. Now, when you're working with offline areas as the map creator, you're responsible for making updates to these offline areas. You can click on the box to the left of your offline area, and then you can see that you have the options to update or recreate or delete that offline area. If you have added or removed layers, appended new featured data, if you have available a manual update schedule that isn't automatically syncing updates to the data from other end users, then that's when you would come in, click on your offline area, and select Update. However, if you have done a structural change, such as to your schema, if you have added or removed fields, updated domains, templates, anything like that, then you would need to recreate that package. When you click on recreate, it warns you that what it does is it deletes this offline area package and then it creates a brand new one. So the thing that you're going to want to do if you recreate is have all of your end users sync all of their data back to the root data sets before you recreate these offline areas, just so nothing goes wrong. Once you recreate or update, your end users are going to also have to take action. If you have updated, then your end users can click the sync option in field maps and they will get those updates. However, if you have recreated this package entirely, your end users must re-download those map packages on their field maps device. So they would have the option to go in, remove the download, and then re-download.